The following program is rated TV MAL. It contains strong language and is intended only for mature audiences.
Okay.
Let's try this again, shall we?
Alright, let's hope Craig doesn't die.
Craig, don't go nowhere.
Craig don't die.
We like you. I want you to stick around and record us talking about bullshit.
To a degree.
Josh, it has been 3 months since there's been some hot, steamy Poptards content.
Sure
What
has.
the fuck have we been doing? Why are we so lazy?
We only know it's only been 3 months because we were recording just a second ago,
Just a second ago and figured that out.
And it failed, so we're re-recording and hoping it doesn't fail again. So,
Yep.
3 months.
It's been
After the Spider-Man High review, let's see what's going on.
So,
I've got my own apartment.
There you go.
Still at my old job. Still wage slaving. I don't know. Still single. Watched the Batman.
And ready to mingle.
Okay, so we can hop right into that.
Yeah, let's go right into Batman because we've both seen it.
We'll discuss it briefly for a hot minute. What did you think about the Batman?
I thought it was phenomenal. I mean, there was work to be done. I thought there was fat to be trimmed. You and I have talked about this privately.
Yeah.
But I think it was very, very good, and I can't wait to see more of it. Like, it was personally my top three interpretations of Batman.
Oh, okay. What would your other be Batman? What would your other Batman movies?
Affleck as my favorite Batman.
Okay.
So it's Affleck, Pattinson, and Kevin Conroy.
He counts.
Yeah, those are my top three.
Yeah, I was a little bit more critical of it. Overall, I did like it. I thought it was.
I can be critical. I thought we just wanted to keep it brief.
Yeah. I thought it went on a little too long.
It absolutely did.
It was about a 3-hour movie. I think there's a lot that could have been trimmed off, like you said. The third act fell apart for me. But other than that, it being a year 2 Batman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty good. You can definitely tell where they initially wanted to keep it in like a late 80s, early 90s setting, and then behind the scenes rumors was like, well, we gotta bump it.
We need an action set piece at the end. This is a Batman movie.
They wanted to move up the timepiece itself, so they set it in modern day.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because you remember originally this was supposed to be like a late 80s, early 90s noir type.
Well, I don't remember them ever putting a date on it. What I like, they do a pretty good job of it being, I don't want to say timeless, but it's like a mixture of time periods where it's like it's almost 1940s. It's almost the 2000s, though, because some of them have nicer phones. And some of the technology is pretty cool, but it's also pretty like retro in other areas.
Well, there's the vehicles are like the dead giveaway for me because it's like you see some of the vehicles, like there's a taxi that Selena Kyle takes at one point in the movie, and it's like an old taxi you would see from like the mid to late 80s to early 90s.
True.
So that's where I'm like, they were trying to change things up. But overall, I think Pattinson, I think he was all right.
I thought Pattinson did really good. I'll tell you who my shining star of this movie is, though, the one that really stood out to me. Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell killed it.
Oh, yeah. He murdered this movie. This was his origin film as much as it was Pattinson.
Yeah. There wasn't a whole...
Bat.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you don't... I mean, you do see Penguin a fair amount, but he's
Well, he's getting his own show on HBO Max, like an
Yeah,
origin story for him, which I think bringing
I was,
out like an origin for this version of Penguin in a No Man's Land esque Gotham would be
yeah.
kind of a cool ass story. I mean, who better than to take over a underwater Gotham than a flightless bird?
There you go.
You know, known for their swimming skill. I
There
know
you
it's
go.
not all underwater, but that doesn't help my metaphor.
No, no, no. But no, yeah, he did great. He wasn't in it a whole lot, I would say, but
No,
the
criminally
parts.
underused, just like Alfred.
Oh yeah, Alfred was in it even less, which I was a little bit surprised about. But yeah, like it definitely could have been trimmed down a lot. I do appreciate though that this is a more world's greatest detective focused Batman than it
Yeah.
is just like straight up action
Even though he
fight stuff.
wasn't all that great of a detective, I did like that
Yeah,
he's
he
still
was.
learning. Like he is still year two Batman trying to figure it out, where it's more of the mystique of Batman that he's carrying off of or riding on than it is that he's actually that badass of a Batman already.
Right,
Like,
right, right.
like I think you and I talked about where I loved his fucking uh, glider suit thing that he has, and I
Yeah, so
love
he has
that
a squirrel
it
suit.
works. Yeah, he's got a fucking squirrel suit thing that comes out on him, and I love that it works up until the moment he hits that bridge. But by that point, he's already way outside the fucking law, the
Yeah.
police station. So like the story that would come out of that building was like, and then he fucking flew away. Like, but what they
We
don't
saw
see is him, hitting the shit,
we saw him fly away, and that was the last we saw of him. And
right? And then we found a body with a crushed face on the side of the road wearing a bat suit.
we found it was a little bit after Halloween. The Bruce Wayne was just fucking dead on the side of the road in a bat suit.
Right? Dude, okay, so I had found not that when listening to the Kevin Smith podcast, The Fat Man Beyond, that he
Ah,
found a tweet that perfectly encapsulated this and I liked it. Where it's like it said that it made Batman's world real. Where like a lot of in the comics the rule of cool applies to where like Batman can do some ridiculous shit as long as it looks cool. This motherfucker just had a hand wavy comment about armored plating, and suddenly he's bulletproof from the neck down. And I didn't hate it. I
right.
liked that it was like, yeah, Batman's got an armored suit. What kind of armor? Shut the fuck up, Christopher Nolan. You don't
Yeah.
have to have the millimeter types and the military defunded. We don't need. Well, we don't need all the detail. Like
You don't need
sometimes
the
it's
fancy words to explain the mumbo
yeah.
jumbo.
I'm sorry if that didn't like really do the right justice to it. But like sometimes it's a comic book movie. You just want a comic book movie. Like I
Yeah, there
loved
there
the
there is
real
a level of suspension of disbelief
yeah.
that
Like
you
I
have to
love
give
how
them.
realistic things have gotten. Like because you could see it and like, oh, that looks I could see if that was in the real world that Superman looks legit. I could believe that would be a real life super person.
Right.
But there's some things where suspension of disbelief is just nice, where it's like, oh, that's just fucking awesome. What sense does
Yeah.
that make? Shut the hell up
Like,
for just a
like,
second.
yeah. Like they give you a brief explanation that is logical, and then that's it. That's all you really need for good
Yeah.
storytelling.
Yeah, they don't over explain it to where you can poke the holes in it. He doesn't say
Yeah.
what kind of armor, it's just he's got armor in his suit.
Yeah. Yeah. So overall, I think I give it a I give it a solid one-time watch recommend because it is 3 hours.
Oh yeah, it's pretty fucking
Um, if you do enjoy Batman just casually, this is it's a recommendation from.
yeah. Can I talk about the scene they released afterwards, or are we trying to keep this as spoiler free as we can?
No, I don't. The movie's been out what
Okay.
two
Like
two weeks
okay.
now, and that's not really even a spoiler. So
So they released this scene with Batman talking to Joker, very Silence of the Lambs style.
And it's a I think it was a deleted scene, wasn't it?
Yeah, deleted scene. It's not in the theatrical cut. But like
Yeah.
we've said a few times, this movie's really fucking long, and they could have trimmed some fat here and there. Like Batman likes to stare at things a little too long, and that's
Yeah.
okay for a detective. But you can trim 2 or 3 seconds off this scene and that scene, and get it to a 2 or 3 minute gap of nothing, and stick this fucking scene back in, because then it has the little reveal of him at the end where he's like talking to Riddler and he's already have looked at his stuff. Like it has that little teaser scene, has more weight, and it's still not a lot. It's honestly, this little scene being in the theatrical cut, if they had trimmed some of the fat like we talked about, I don't think would have
Mhm.
fucked at the pace too much. Like I honestly don't think it would have been a negative to the film. Obviously, someone
No.
disagreed because it's a deleted scene, but I think if you would have been able to have it in there, it still would have had this as big an impact, and it wouldn't have overplayed the Joker hand because it's literally 2.5 minutes.
I think they were wanting to play it safe, which is kind of a smart move at this
Yeah,
point, given the state of movies at this point. And
yeah, it didn't need
I
it.
think I think even adding something like that as like a mid to end credit scene, you
Oh
know, you
well,
I wouldn't have done that
something like
personally.
that. No,
I would I wouldn't have done that personally, but I do think it was kind of neat that they released this deleted scene. It's like, well, here's what we could have possibly had towards the end of the movie, something like that. So
well,
I think given
go ahead.
enough demand, of course, a sequel might come of this. But I think DC as a whole, they're for the most part, by comic book enthusiasts and pop culture analysts, the DC's like in a absolute abysmal state right now.
Yeah.
So I think something like this, like given enough fan praise and stuff like that, they might get a green light for a sequel.
Well, it
But I
makes
think they're
quite
still,
a bit of money.
yeah, I think they're still scrambling to figure out what the hell to do with themselves in terms of movies. Like their comic book sales is like it's a non thought at this point. I think they're just
That's
focused
good.
on. No, I think they're focused on their movies and whatnot, trying to keep them afloat.
Which I mean, okay, but you should also stick to what got you here. You know, I
Yeah,
mean, don't let your backbone grow weak. I mean,
yeah,
comics are what got us to the fucking point where we can have these things on screen in realism and you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
yeah.
oh man,
Yeah,
it's
and
stupid.
the sad part is for the longest time now, I'm gonna say well over 7 years now.
Mm.
The comic book sales, like even before COVID, comic book sales have been in the shitter. Like they were making sales that even 10 years ago would have gotten a comic canceled because it wasn't selling well. And then they got to a point where they're praising these abysmal numbers because like, oh look, we sold 50,000. It's like if you were selling 50,000 like 10, 15 years ago, people
Well,
would be like, wow, this is awful.
yeah, but times change, and I mean, what's wrong with celebrating where you can? Like, yes, like you said, they
To,
had this dip where everything went
to a
down, and
degree,
when it
but
starts coming back up, and they go, "Hey, we're starting to do better." Like, there's a part of that that's worth praising.
yeah, but they're not doing better is the thing.
If they went from a very, very low number to less of a low number, that's doing better, yes or no?
Uh, Not really, because it still speaks on the state of your comic book, like overall. Like if people have lost faith because the same like even
Well,
casual comic book fans will understand like what a bad story is and just eventually like kind of give up after a while.
well, could it be that there's just this that's comic books like as a actual medium it's their turn to like take a moment where like at a lot of things over time take their dip and become less popular for one reason or another. Like maybe it's just comic books time because they're on screen.
Um,
People are like, fucking fuck the comic books, like the general
that
audience
that
at
would
least.
make sense if there was a fatigue point, like everybody had mentioned, with something like the Avengers movie or the
The
MCU.
MCU.
Like right before Endgame came out, everybody was talking about like is comic book fatigue a thing?
Mm.
And that only got brought up because of some of the lesser movies in the later phases weren't making as much as the early ones. And that could be a mixture of both comic book movie fatigue and poor writing or lesser writing. And like you get something like you throwing in Captain Marvel between Infinity War and Endgame. Like that movie still made like close to, if not right at $1 billion,
Oh
but
yeah,
it's one of the worst received movies in the
Wh-
MCU.
it is, and for a
And
variety of reasons. But
and rightfully so. Like it is plagued with awful writing. I don't know anybody who has I don't know anybody who has seen that movie and said that they enjoyed it or had desire to go see it again or to watch it again, you know? I
I've,
don't know anybody, like even among like people I talk to who are into comic books or watch the MCU movies. I don't know anybody who says that they like Captain Marvel as a character.
I mean, I don't hate that movie,
I I
but
don't care
we've
for
talked.
it.
I like the movie. It's not bad. It's not the best one, but it's not as we. I don't want to. We've done this enough personally. I don't want to do this
What would
on
you
the
say is
podcast.
out of the movies, not the TV series, but out of the movies of the MCU movies so far, what would you say is the worst one?
Hmm. Well,
Would you say Captain Marvel is worse than Eternals?
yeah, I like the Eternals more than I like Captain Marvel.
I'm trying to
I mean,
think.
I like Captain Marvel too. Like, I just thought, like, I don't want to go off on a tangent about Captain Marvel because we keep fucking going off on Marvel tangents. But I just thought with the Captain Marvel movie, I didn't think it was as bad as people fucking like to say. I think a lot of it was Brie Larson was so fucking unlikable and she wouldn't shut up and say stupid shit. I
I
think
mean, yeah,
people
she
allowed
didn't
that to
help
leech onto their feelings for this movie and make them think it's worse than it is. Sure, it's not the best. It's just
to a
mediocre.
degree, yeah, but there is
But I think that hurt.
objectively awful writing and plot holes in it
Well,
just
all of
because.
them do, but I genuinely think
Yeah,
that
but
people let Brie
that one was
Larson
like one
hate.
of the worst.
It was all right. It was just weird. Like I said, it's not my favorite one of the Marvel movies. It's just okay. I've seen it a few times just because I like the movies.
Yeah,
Uh, but
I'll have to refer to you to Mahler's Unbridled Rage of the
oh, I
movie.
don't need to see somebody shit talk. I've watched it for myself and made my own opinions. I
No,
see the
but this is
issues.
like
I just don't
objective
think they're as
facts of like
bad.
why the writing is bad.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, but like, you know what? Let's talk for a second. Other than MCU stuff, let's talk about some movies that aren't MCU, but like fucking Netflix has some badass shit that's been coming out,
I
like
haven't
the
seen
Adam
anything on
Project.
Netflix.
Have you seen
I
Adam
haven't
Project?
I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard some pretty good stuff about it.
Adam Project is very good. Have you seen The
Oh, hey,
Kingsman?
I was gonna say, yeah, we've both seen The Kingsman.
Yeah, that movie's fucking great.
I
Like all those
couldn't.
movies have been, I
I'd
think.
have to watch it again to give some better detail because off the top of my head, I can't remember shit. But I do remember thoroughly enjoying it. But I watched it like as I was still kind of waking up before work. So
Dude, that movie really got me with the twist of the son. Like, I'm just gonna spoil this shit. It got me
That's
with the
fine.
twist of the sun dying because, like, all the trailers, everything made it seem like this kid was gonna be the next generation of great, or maybe
They
like that
also
kid
made
was
it.
gonna be what's his name? Like, I thought it might be the guy with the eye patch into the butterflies. I forget his
Oh
name.
yeah.
The
I know who you're
fucking
talking
main character of the other one, like, or
about.
not the
Yeah,
main character, but anyway. I feel like a dick because I can't remember his name. Anyway, I thought it was gonna turn out to be like him or some shit or his dad, and then the fucking
yeah.
guy dies, and it's this fucking tragic ass story of Voldemort being a badass with his
Voldemort.
buddies. But it was a really fucking good movie, like with the extra flavor of that filmmaker whose all those Kingsman movies have been awesome.
Mhm.
Like it still had that type of action,
I was gonna
but
say
in
it was
this
very much a Kingsman movie.
yeah, it was very much a Kingsman movie, and it just had this badass backdrop of this classic, like, almost espionage film because
Yeah,
they are kind of spies. Like the origin of how this place came to be, it was really fucking neat, man.
it's very rare that origin movies after like one or two of the main movies came out like are successful or are well praised,
Mm.
and this is one of them that it's like really good. That I'd be happy to watch. Like if I was for some reason to go on a Kingsman marathon, which I haven't. Like
Watch
I've
that one
watched,
first.
yeah, I'd be more than happy to watch this one first, then Kingsman 1 and 2.
Oh, absolutely. Um,
But I couldn't tell you the fucking details of this movie. I just
no,
know that I just know that I enjoyed it.
that that director, I can't think of who does Kingsman. I'm gonna uh,
You can look it up.
yeah, I'm gonna look it up. But he gives me Guy Ritchie vibes, like because his filmmaking, like visually, is so distinct
Yeah,
for
his
his.
cinematography.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
with Guy Ritchie films, like I like Guy Ritchie's writing style to where, like, have you seen his stuff like Snatch and Lock, Stock,
Lock, Stock,
Barrels?
Two Smoking Barrels. Yeah.
So those are the stuff that I was familiar with him with. And then I think we've talked about this before. Actually, I think we talked about this on the Ghost podcast, uh, where he did what was it called? The King Arthur movie?
Oh, the one with Clive Owen.
Yeah. No. The one with Jax Teller.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
uh, the guy from Sons of Anarchy.
yeah. I can't
Jack.
remember the actor's Charlie Hunnam.
Yeah,
But he did that, and I remember going into that movie, and I don't remember it being like knowing that it was a Guy Ritchie film because they had the scene right at the beginning where he's like, "Tell me a story, Archer," and he tells him, and the way the dialogue's cutting back and forth is like, "This feels very Guy Ritchie." Turns out it
I remember that's all I remembered of the movie
was that it was a Guy Ritchie film with
was
Arthur in it.
Charlie Hunnam was in it as Arthur, and it was directed by Guy Ritchie. And I was like, this could be either really, really cheesily bad or either really cheesily good. And I don't think I've ever seen the movie all the way through.
It's good. I liked it. Uh, it's it it's one of those where like as a Guy Ritchie fan, it was kind of neat to see him getting, at least from my watching experience, like where all the movies I had seen at that point were all gangster films, where they could have been independent movies. Uh,
Yeah,
but I don't know what his budget on those were. This one was, it felt like he was like, I want to make this movie, and they handed him all the money, and he just
yeah,
went for it.
yeah,
It was pretty great. Uh, if you're into that, like my favorite movie, probably one of my top five movies of all time is Snatch by Guy Ritchie. So I'm a little
yeah.
bit biased. I really like his work.
I can't remember the last Guy Ritchie movie I watched. I'd have to find a list. I think I can save this. See, what other movies have we seen since?
I've been watching a lot of TV actually. I
With,
say
with
TV like series is
yeah. Oh shoot.
what?
Did you ever finish Reacher?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Uh,
I
yeah,
love Reacher. Reacher's
Reacher
fucking
was
great.
Reacher was fantastic.
Yes, it was.
Alan
Now
Richson,
I'll
he
let
is
you go off because
fantastic.
you actually you read one of the books, right? Like you actually saw.
I've only read the first book.
Okay, so I read none of them. I only know of Reacher from I watched a little bit of the Tom Cruise movie, and that was it.
Yeah.
So you go off on Reacher for a minute because you
So
actually know more than I do.
um so so this has nothing to do with the Tom Cruise movies. Um which is good. It's kind of like it's a I guess you could think of it as like a reboot.
Yeah,
Um so it does very much follow the first book um very, very well. Uh it's more accurate with Alan Richson playing Jack Reacher because when you see Tom Cruise, like he did all right, but I don't know if I would have called it Reacher or Jack Reacher movie because like part of the books, part of the storytelling for Reacher is Reacher's figure, him being like a giant person, because
yeah,
both like Alan Richson, Reacher's like he's like your classic hero archetype where he's a tall, muscle bound dude who can move a little bit faster than he would appear that he would be.
yeah.
He's very quick witted. He's very he's got a heightened prowess.
Your
He's
classic
your
wish fulfillment hero.
yeah. And so if you haven't seen Reacher on Amazon, it's very surprisingly very good.
Yeah, go
And
watch. You probably already have Amazon Prime. Just go watch it.
I would say if you get a trial or something like that for Amazon Prime, like Reacher's very much worth it. Like
It's very
he
good.
did, I will say like it does fan service for the women a lot because Alan is without his shirt several times throughout
Oh
the
yeah, and
series.
he got in really good shape too. Like,
Well, he's always been in really great shape, but I recently learned too, he put on 30 pounds of muscle for that role too.
yeah, you know what it makes
So,
me think of? Like, I'm really happy as a fan of this actor. Like, I like him on Titans, but
yeah.
as a fan of the actor, knowing the hell they went through on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like to
Oh
see him
god.
finally
Yeah.
get a starring role, not just a part in a group of an ensemble. He's the star of the fucking show. He's Reacher. So
Yeah.
like to see him getting to do that, knowing how he was one of the fucking turtles. He was Raphael. You're one of the Ninja Turtles, and they don't give a fuck about the four dudes who were the actual actors. Like it's all their
Mhm.
mocap, most of it, other than like some of the fight shit. Like if you haven't, if you're listening to this and you don't know that story, just go look up Alan's interview on some fucking radio show with the two hosts. Anyway, he talks. It's fucking awful. We're like,
Yeah.
you're supposed to. If you're the star of the movie, no, the star of the movie is Megan Fox and what's his name? I'm forgetting. Nothing wrong with either of them, really. I don't care for Megan Fox's acting. But the
Yeah.
other dude, whose name I am blanking on, he played Lego Batman. Uh,
Oh yeah.
I like him, and I liked him in
Yeah,
those
I know.
Turtle movies. I liked Megan Fox in those Turtle movies, but they didn't give and when I say they, I mean like the studio didn't seem to give a fuck about the actual turtles,
Yeah.
which is
It's a
bananas to
shame.
me.
because like I've heard a lot of people say like overall like those movies are pretty good for being TMNT movies.
Oh yeah, they're actually
Um,
pretty good. Like the
yeah,
second one's got a lot of fan servicey shit with Krang and all that going on, and
yeah. I barely remember it, but I remember a lot of people were pretty happy about it.
yeah, it wasn't bad, man. Like it was way better than I thought it was gonna be whenever I saw the original images of it with their weird
Yeah.
fucking frog kind of faces. But I mean,
Um,
honestly, they do look like giant mutant turtles. I mean, in hindsight, at the time, I was like, "Where's the big puppet face?"
and
But
they sure should act like teenagers, so you
yeah, they
know.
do. Uh, other non Marvel things we could talk about. Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard came out, and that was a surprisingly good sequel to a. I mean, obviously going to be good with Sam Jackson and Ryan Reynolds.
I
And
only laugh because I completely forgot about that movie's existence,
did you?
and yeah,
I watched that movie like maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago. It was very good. I crack up. I cracked up every time. I've seen it twice now, and I cracked up both times at the final scene. Have you seen the movie?
I've seen the first one,
Okay, so you haven't seen
but I
Hitman's
haven't.
Wife's Bodyguard?
No, because it's a
Which
lot of words.
that fucking title? It's three. Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, but that title
Yeah,
is ridiculous.
it's kind of like what was it? Um, War of the Planet of the Apes or what or something like that.
Oh yeah. Which
Yeah,
those? Can we talk for a second? Since you brought that up, like I do want to say again, Hitman Wife Bodyguard is very funny. But Matt Reeves, the guy that just did the Batman movie, he also did those Planet of the Apes movies. I fucking loved his trilogy of Planet of the Apes movies. I could
those
talk
are good.
about those movies for a while. We could do a whole podcast of me not talking about anything other than fucking Planet of the Apes movies. Those were very good, at least for me personally. Uh,
I think I've
but
only seen the first three, maybe. I don't
I'm
remember.
almost positive Matt Reeves did those. Uh,
Um,
I'll,
maybe
I got a freaking
you,
thing right here.
you can.
Those movies, I don't,
Those are good.
I haven't really seen in years. If I've seen the original Planet of the Apes movies, I could not tell you like the actual
You don't
occurrences.
remember the Marky Mark Planet of the Apes movie?
I, I see, I know flashes of it, like, and I don't know if I've actually watched it or if I've
I
seen
will
pieces
never
of it.
forget it.
I do remember, damn yous all to hell. Of course, that's Muse doing it, but
Yeah.
I do remember seeing him shaking a fist at a ape version of Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, there was that.
But yeah, those movies are really, really good, man. Like, out, it kind of goes back to it's all full circle. He's got what's his Andy Serkis was the monkey in there, and then he was the
Oh
main
yeah.
guy, and then he casts him as Alfred, and only puts him in like 5 minutes of total screen time.
Yeah, I remember a lot of people were pretty hyped about him being Alfred. And I
Hold
remember
up, I'm
we
sorry.
were both.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I remember we were both kind of theorizing, like with it, um, kind of being a younger Alfred, which is a weird thing that they're doing in these comic book. They've only done it twice that I can think of off the top of my head, but they're making
Oh, I know
these
what you're saying.
they're making
Making
these
him
critical
younger.
figureheads. They're making these critical figureheads that are like mentors to the protagonist. They're making them younger and younger with every reboot they do of them, like
Are
Spider-Man
you?
and Aunt May.
Yeah, yep. That's what I was gonna ask. So like,
Yeah,
I I think a part of that is that you can keep the characters longer. Especially, it makes a little more sense if the main character is younger. Like
yeah,
having Spider-Man be like a teenager when he's introduced, and like everybody made jokes about Aunt May's young and hot. She's 50. Like
yeah.
she's hot, but she's still 50. Well, no, they never say Aunt May's 50. No, Marissa Tomei is 50.
Yeah,
They don't say how old May is, but Marissa Tomei's 50. And if she's too hot for an old lady for you, she's still 50 and still hot. Like,
yeah.
plus,
Which,
she's his aunt. Like, yeah, we're all used to an old lady for his aunt, but like his aunt doesn't have to be older than him necessarily.
yeah,
My dad was an uncle when he was born.
yeah. I was gonna say, and like in the grand scheme of things, like nowadays, it's a I can see how it's a weird thought to have, somebody who's like in their mid to late 60s, early 70s be playing a high schooler slash college kid's aunt.
Yeah, I get it.
So I mean, it's that's fine that they de-age the character, but I think that's kind of funny.
So Matt Reeves was, uh, along with being an actor in an uncredited in Cloverfield, I'm definitely on his IMDb.
Hmm.
He has directed 14 films, including the Planet of the Apes trilogy. He directed Cloverfield, which I also love Cloverfield. I didn't realize he did that. He directed
Yeah, I
5
thought that was
episodes of
JJ.
Felicity, and credits him as a director here.
Yeah.
Although his
No,
acting
no,
credit on that is a lady.
I know JJ did the sequel to it, or what was supposed to be the sequel. Um Cloverfield Lane or whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Those
believe.
they were like loose sequels. Like they
Yeah.
were more like
They
actually
were
they were
set.
kind of like the Marvel movies where they're not
I was
exactly sequels. They were just kind of in the same world.
Yeah, I was gonna say they were confirmed in the same world, but they didn't really have much to do with each other,
No, I
which is
can't remember what
which
the
is
other
fucking
one.
weird.
It is weird, but like so are those movies. Like, did you
Actually,
ever
now
watch?
that I think, I was gonna say now that I think about it, I think Cloverfield was a J.J. Abrams project. Like it was a Bad Robot, his company
Yeah, it was a
that
bad
did that.
robot thing.
Yeah, so he had some involvement.
Did you ever watch any of the other Cloverfield deals?
No, I know there was there was a Netflix movie, I believe.
Yep. Uh,
Yeah,
so you had Cloverfield, you had 10 Cloverfield Lane, which was what's his name?
John
Uh,
Goodman.
John Goodman and Mary Elizabeth Winstead in a like doomsday bunker
Yeah,
underground, and it was like when this type of shit was going on. Not necessarily the same event, but like
giant monster aliens
these
were
aliens
attacking.
are here. Uh, and then they had the Cloverfield paradox, which was the weirdest one.
That's
Uh,
it.
it was like so these
It was
scientists
set in
people
space.
in space, and they did this like test with some kind of device that would give them unlimited fucking power. And when they did, it just kind of Twilight Zoned them, where like everything was being weird. Like one dude was missing a limb and it was in the wall or some shit.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was fucking weird. And then at the very end, they're landing back on an Earth, and one of those creatures' heads pop out of the fucking clouds. And that's the only reason those things are connected. And it's like, what is going on, JJ? Give us more information. And then they just never made another movie. Like they
It's
came out
J.J.
with,
Abrams though. He's kind of notorious for like dropping the ball in the last act of something.
he had a, excuse me, another movie that had come out during like the off period of that, where it was like, was it 50 millimeter or some shit like that, where it was like the whole basis was these kids with an old school camera recording
Oh
things,
yeah, it was
and it was
I think it was 40 millimeter or something like that. I mean it was the
Super
play
8.
on word. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, Super 8. That was a good one.
Yeah, that one was pretty decent, man. Like See, I like when, as much as I like these IP movies, I really like when someone comes up with something fucking original. Like
Mhm.
Cloverfield was supposed to be an American Godzilla, is if I remember Abrams talking about it
Pretty,
right.
pretty much,
It was
yeah.
like that's what he was going for, which I respect going for something like that. Like it takes some balls to try to do something crazy. Like
It's
I
not
mean,
hard though, but you know,
it didn't work. I mean, he kind of did, but it didn't exactly blow up like Godzilla did. We
no,
didn't see
he
Cloverfield
thought
pop up in Godzilla versus King Kong, did we?
no, he didn't.
We saw Mecha Godzilla pop up in that, but we didn't see the alien one.
Yeah, yeah. Fudge. I don't even know. God, I don't know why it's so hard when you've got a template with something like that, and like you've got a goal, and you announce your goal is like for example that like I want to make an American Godzilla. It's a big old monster that attacks America or whatever. Okay, that big monster movie's been made for. Here's a template. You don't have to copy it beat for beat, but here you go. Here's what worked.
Well, he
I
gave it a
don't.
twist with the found footage flair.
Yeah, yeah.
That was
Like
pretty
that.
cool.
That was interesting. Like it
That's why
added
I
a
liked it.
new. Yeah, that's why a lot of people. I mean, to a degree, that's why a lot of people liked it. A lot of people were very annoyed with like how incredibly shaky it was. Like you can do found footage
Admittedly,
movies with it. You can do found footage movies without it being like 80% shaky cam.
you
Like the
can.
whole thing doesn't need to look like a Jason Bourne fight scene.
You can, but in defense of like, let's uh playing devil's advocate. It is more realistic. They wouldn't be doing the best at recording if they're running from those fucking terrifying spider creatures. But yeah, it should have been done a whole lot better. A little stabilization action going.
Yeah.
What about
I think if you're going to do something like that today, I think I think the other thing too is like arguably that he was ahead of his time when he made that movie. I think you could have done it better and justify a more Steadicam today with the Steadicam feature on cell phones and people wearing GoPros on helmets.
Oh, there you go. That's a good fucking idea.
Yeah, so I think if you
That's-
were going to try to do Cloverfield today, I think you'd have a better visual experience that would be more grounded with like, oh, well, cell phones have like Steadicam and all this
That's
other
a good
stuff.
idea. See, maybe you should
Um,
make one.
I mean, I probably could do it better than him. It's not
I think
hard.
you should try. That would be awesome. What about do you, how would you consider Free Guy original? Because that's pretty. I liked Free Guy. That's a pretty original story to some degree.
Yeah, I guess you could. I mean, the
Or is it
idea.
more just a time capsule?
You could say it's inspired. You could easily say it's inspired. Um,
By
I, ooh, okay. I've only seen bits and pieces of Free Guy. I know what the movie is.
oh, so you haven't seen the movie?
I haven't fully seen the
Oh,
movie.
okay. Never mind. Then that's not. Never mind. I thought you had already seen it.
Well,
Uh,
no, not yet. Like I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I haven't seen the full movie. But it's Ryan Reynolds playing an NPC in an open world video game, though, right?
yeah, where he's he's gaining sentience.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Like,
he becomes sentient and he becomes aware of who he is within this game,
yeah,
and
it's
then
really goofy, but it's also like trying to have some heart. It tries,
yeah,
but
yeah. So
well,
I was gonna
I'll,
say like I was gonna say it's inspired in a way where like to me it kind of feels like it kind of takes notes from Wreck-It Ralph, where
okay, I like
where
that.
the yeah where like the protagonist is a he's not the main character of an overall story, but he becomes the main character
Yeah,
for the story that they're telling for him of how, like, you know, it's different for both characters, but like in Wreck-It Ralph, Ralph becomes, he's like this misunderstood bad guy, within this game's world. And so it's kind of
Yeah.
cool how they played with all that, where it's like it's a
Of
nine to
course, in
five
Wreck-It
job.
Ralph, yeah, I love the way they did that, like you're saying.
They portray it as like it's like a 9 to 5 type of job thing where he shows up, he plays a bad guy, and then leaves, and everybody's like kind of friends with each other.
Yeah.
Um,
See, this is
and so
different. Where
yeah, it's
you
different.
need to check this movie out. It's
Yeah,
the
because
way
like in
they
this one,
do. Actually, I
Re-
don't want to say too much. I
yeah,
want.
no, well, no, I was gonna say, but from what I've gathered, like Reynolds, like he's not a bad guy or anything. Like he's just an off-script, non-playable person within this game's
Yeah, he's
world.
the bank teller.
Yeah, and
You know
then
what? Let's talk about something that we have both seen. Peacemaker.
I haven't finished the series.
What?
I still need to watch like the last episode or two.
Bro, we've been gone for 3 months. You ain't finished Peacemaker?
Okay, but I'm on your HBO Max account, and there's been like twice where I attempted to go and watch it, and you
That is
had to.
accurate. It's back up now, though. I got it back
Okay,
on.
I was gonna say there's been times where I was gonna go watch it. It's like, oh, please update your your payment methods. Like, all right, I guess
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
no.
watch it.
My sister was like, we're making a little better money now. Do you need me to do it? I was like, I don't need you to do it. I just didn't pay it. She's like, do you need money? I was like, no, I got money. I just
Just set
didn't
it
pay
to
it.
auto pay, you silly.
Well, then if I can't pay it and I don't need to pay it, I can't stop it. So I just pay it incrementally. Anyway,
You can
another thing.
always set it. You can always temporarily disable payments.
Again, and that's what I do. And sometimes it just stops and I don't turn it back on.
You're
Uh,
silly.
yeah, that is
Anyways,
true. Um, they have a show on there called Our Flag Means Death about pirates.
I was
And
gonna say you're gonna have to explain this because I haven't heard of this.
okay, so I don't want to spoil too much, because the show is
Is it
good.
a timepiece?
It no, it's really goofy. Um,
Oh, okay,
but it's one of those where it's Reese Darby. Do you know that name?
sounds
Do you
familiar.
do you remember? The first thing popping in my head is the newest junk. What's it called? Jumanji.
Oh God.
Okay, you know the NPC that drives them around. It's like,
Uh,
"Welcome to
n-
Jumanji."
no. I think
What?
I've
Oh my
maybe
god!
I've seen
Google
bits
his
and
name
pieces of
real
the
quick.
first movie.
Look up "Our Flag Means Death" real quick on your phone or whatever.
Our
Um,
flag.
so it's a funny period piece type deal where it follows Stede Bonnet. He's an 18th century like super pampered aristocrat, and he abandons his family, buys a
Mm-hmm.
ship, and goes out on sea to become a pirate. And
Okay,
he runs into Blackbeard, played by Taika Waititi,
of course.
and Taika actually does a decent job of like, yeah, the show is silly, but they actually a lot of them when they have moments of like acting, it's good, but it's
Yeah.
also super goofy as shit. Like at one point, they have a episode where Bonnet takes Blackbeard to a like aristocrat party, like with the
Mm-hmm.
coiffed wigs and the powdered faces and shit. And the main like aristocrats that steer the episode, the dude is Nick Kroll.
Oh
So
God.
yeah. There's another episode where Blackbeard's friend joins the crew.
So
He's
you
like,
could say it's like in the same spirit as something like What We Do in the Shadows.
no,
Oh,
more
okay.
like the Orville,
Okay.
where it's taking itself seriously, but
Yeah,
it's
but
not.
yeah.
Um, So yeah, it's more like the Orville in that regard, where it is taking itself seriously and everything going on, but it
But
is still a goofy show.
there's moments of comedy and whatnot.
Yeah. It is gayer than I expected it to be, but pirates are pretty gay.
Wait, how's it gay?
Well, like, okay, I don't know if you know this, but in the old days of piracy, they'd be at sea for a long time, and things happen when you're at sea. It's all kind of, nobody judged people as much. When you were at sea, things, went that way. And
Yeah,
I
sure.
remember
You
I
either fuck
watched,
a fish or you fuck your
yeah,
deck mates.
exactly. And I didn't think about that. And then this fucking show, like, is trying to have this heart moment in the back, like, of the storytelling, to where,
Uh-huh.
like, I I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's like it's really funny how there is just all kinds of you know like inclusion in this show that would have
It's
actually
progressive, you would
it's
say?
progressive, but it's accurate to a very good degree.
Yeah,
But
it's not
it's
like
funny
annoying.
how like Bonnet and Blackbeard have a moment and it didn't really feel forced. Does that, you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah, I know what you mean.
was like, oh, that actually you did. I now I
It
could
doesn't
be
feel like
wrong.
it doesn't feel like they put things in because they felt like they had an agenda or quota to meet.
At least to me, like it
Yeah,
felt. It's still goofy, but like
right.
they show they have this moment where and then they're gonna run away together or whatever, and then it doesn't something happens to where that doesn't work out, and Blackbeard like goes through a whole like downward spiral of an episode where he like has depression and
Yeah,
shit, and like it's funny, but they take the time to like it was surprised me how much depth they were trying to add to this while it's still funny,
right.
but it was surprisingly gayer than I expected it to be because I didn't
Yeah, I was
expect
gonna
the
say
main plot point to be a budding gay relationship
yeah, I was
and
gonna
the
say like
rise
I
and
think I
fall of it.
remember hearing like one thing about the show maybe, but outside of that, I do not remember the show at all.
But it's
But
very
like,
good.
yeah,
I love the
it's a
shit. Now I don't know how well the representation is. I'm a straight dude, but like it seemed well done to me. Where it was
you,
like it didn't feel shoved down my throat, even though it was a main
do
plot
you
point.
think a gay butt pirate would be satisfied with the
Well, no,
portrayal
but
in
I'm
this movie?
curious how well a gay person would think it was done. Like
I don't think
I
they
don't
would
know.
care. I don't think the average gay person would care about
But
such
the people that
representation.
well, I'm not asking the average people. I'm asking the people that take the time to get offended by shit like that. Like
So
I'm
Twitter,
curious. Yeah, like I'm curious. I don't give a fuck enough to go on Twitter and look. But
well, it being Taika Waititi, I'm sure they're pretty happy about it.
speaking of fucking Twitter, can we talk about Joe Rogan?
Yeah,
And I think Twitter was like leading the charge on that shit.
trying to
So
get Joe canceled
yeah, so like,
multiple times.
oh my god, like how do we break down the
Trying to,
timeline of events for that?
I mean, so many people have made so many like very clear, accurate points of like it started out Twitter is not the real world. People leftists on Twitter aren't the same as leftists in real life. Gay Twitter's not the same as gay real life. And it keeps getting broken down like that, and it's so strange because like despite it being the least popular and least active base of the three or four social platforms between Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, uh, yeah, uh, it doesn't have as big of a concurrent user base as Instagram or Facebook, but
Yeah,
it is like the main hub. It's like it's the town square. Facebook is not the town square. Instagram is not the town square. Twitter is a town square because its focal point is, seeing people's messages. And it's more its accessibility is more straightforward than Facebook. But it's so
you have less to talk about in the thing because you only have X amount of characters too. I think
that too. But that is solved by chaining your paragraphs together in.
Oh yeah, where you just have a whole giant list of like.
Yeah, you've got a reply tweet to your tweet where and people will number it. Either they'll
12.
Yeah, it'll be like 1 of 12, 2 of 12, shit like that. And it'll be like long statements and shit like that. And it's something like, it's so strange because it's the way corporations will address things now. They won't put out a statement the majority of the time, or they will, but then they'll go back and then they'll add emphasis through a series of tweets.
Yeah, they use Twitter and like almost like Trump did, where he used it as his public forum. I don't want to make it political. I'm not one way or another.
Well, you're right. I mean, it's Trump was the first president to use Twitter I'm gonna say effectively, as efficiently as he did. I mean, I won't say it was a good thing.
I mean, I don't remember a lot of his presidency, but didn't people kind of talk about him like a social media president too, right?
Who? Obama?
Obama, yeah.
No, not really. Not to the extent Trump did. No,
not to the extent, but I'm saying like it's not like Trump was the first one to really utilize social media. He just did it the best, or the worst, depending on how you look at it.
I was gonna say, from a neutral stance, he utilized it better than Obama did, because Obama would only use it to like put out simple statements and share links to statements he made that were linked to like the White House or something.
Anyway, so back to Joe Rogan. Let's get off politics for a second.
Yeah. So, I mean, it all kind of goes together because it's Twitter.
Well, they tried to say he was spreading misinformation like he's a fucking actual news source. That's the thing that's weird to me.
Yeah, and so like the thing with Twitter though, to like give context of all this, Twitter, again, like I said, it's become the town square, but it's being ran by like
idiots,
the biggest fucking retards who do not understand real life, who do not interact with real life.
Yeah.
And it's so different because like, and it's something people have talked about long before Twitter was the town square, where it's like you can only understand so much context through seeing letters put together. Like, you're not going to get the emotions of somebody when you read a sentence that they put on Twitter.
Yeah.
So
and one taken out of context.
Yeah, especially that. And like like the number one thing, you can't sense sarcasm through Twitter, through tweets and through sentences and stuff. Like, you could take a simple phrase like, oh yeah, like the simple phrase, oh yeah, I like black olives. That could either be like an add-on to a sentence of somebody who mentioned that they liked pizza and then says, oh yeah, I like black olives on pizza. Or it could be a sarcastic retort of, oh yeah, I like black olives. Like, you're not going to understand that context from a stranger who put that out.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with Twitter is like people, they have, and it's so baffling too, because like they have the opportunity to ask for context, and they have increasingly over time, in a very short time, refused to get context.
Yeah.
And it's for various reasons, where maybe they did ask and the person replied, fuck you, I'm not gonna waste my time on you explaining this if you can't figure it out, type thing. And like, for me, being somebody who's been engaged more so on Facebook, but just in social media in general, with like, politics and whatnot, and discussing pop culture and whatnot with people, like, there are times where I'm genuinely wanting context for something where everybody else has dogpiled them. And like, I'll get a little bit more context from them that I didn't get before, but I'm still disagreeing with them, and I'll be nice about it depending on their approach to it. And just tell them like, yeah, I disagree with this. I think it's dumb, but that's your prerogative. Have a good day.
Yeah. Well, like,
But
oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say. So with the context of that, the tolerance, I will say, um, especially with COVID happening and people being locked up in their houses with not much to do, they're gonna swamp to social media, and so everybody's tolerance for bullshit has gone shorter and shorter and shorter, and so they refuse to even go out of their way and read a full transcript of a context to something Joe Rogan said, or they refuse to even go and listen to this segment to get context. And that was the issue with Trump. Like, not getting into politics or anything, but it's something that's happened with a lot of politicians, like Obama too, where like, people will take just sentences out of a paragraph and run with that as something that they said to misconstrue the context of what the person was talking about. And this is something that Joe Rogan, out of seemingly almost out of nowhere, you could say, started experiencing, and it's only been getting worse and worse. And the first brunt of it, oh God, when was it? I'm going to say it could have been like 2014, 2016 with the Fallon Fox debacle where he was being accused of being transphobic.
Yeah. Oh,
And
that
so,
fighter.
yeah, there was the trans fighter, and like it wasn't within the UFC, but it was a mixed martial arts company
Yeah.
who just kind of allowed it to happen. But if I remember right, I could be wrong, so this isn't a statement of fact. But if I remember right, I believe Fallon Fox, who is a trans male to female, big old brolic person, fought a biologically female fighter, and the organization, I believe, didn't do any sort of like checking for extensive drug use or anything like that. I think this is like one of those I can't remember, but there was a thing where they just kind of allowed it to happen, and they didn't ask for Fallon Fox to disclose whether or not she was trans or anything like that, because like there are some pretty rough looking women out there, like Chris Cyborg, who isn't trans, but right at the side of her, you would think maybe she is trans or something like that. And that's not a knock. Like that's just the type of look you're gonna get in that business, where like just general hardworking people are gonna look rough.
Hey,
Like
Cyborg's
whether
got a nice smile, man.
sure whatever. Uh, uh, she said some pretty shitty things, but outside of that,
I didn't say
um,
nothing about her opinions.
I don't
I
know.
said she got a nice smile.
Whatever. So, so Fallon Fox, um, in their, I don't know if it was their first fight. In the highlight of this, very early on in the fight, cracked open her opponent's skull. Her opponent being a biologically female fighter,
Yeah.
and there wasn't in I forgot what the criteria was, because like it wasn't a huge gap, but there was a significant enough advantage for Fallon Fox, of course, being biologically male and having, you know, everything that a male has over a woman.
Yeah.
Um, like just went to town on this poor girl, and later found out like, oh, she never disclosed that she was trans and all this other stuff. And that was the only thing Joe Rogan pointed out.
Well, I mean, he did point that out, but he also went on just to keep it fair, went on an 8-minute rant on his podcast as not a rant, but he talked about it for a minute, and like I could see why some people would be offended, but I also agree with Joe. Like that's you're bigger and like physically.
Yeah, so yeah, you could call it a rant, sure, but like the main issue was it's not the fact that he has a problem or anybody else generally. I'm gonna throw myself into it too because like I'm of the same mindset. At this point, I don't care what you identify as, but if you're gonna enter in a sport of something like that, there has to be something done where the opponent knows what you are and if they're agreeing to this, knowing the context of what's going on.
Yeah.
Fallon Fox's opponent did not know she was trans. Fallon Fox's opponent did not know, the contextual issues of all this. And so that's the issue Joe Rogan and many other people in sports in general had with this was like they should have immediately done they if there was an
Well,
agreement,
I
that
mean,
would have been fine. If there was an agreement between the two fighters with the context of things, that would have been fine.
yeah. Like, I don't know. Like, would it just be easier to say full equality in like weight divisions? That's all it is. If you're in that weight division, that's where you're fighting. Like, if they agree to it,
I'm
is it just should if
the
is that where equality people want it to be? Like,
no, they don't even care. They really don't even care because they don't even make sense.
okay, well,
Because
just
the issue too is like you could have like a male and a female weigh the same. Like I guess a good median range would be like 150. But at
yeah.
that point too, the the male biologically males have a significant advantage in terms of oxygen to the lungs,
Well,
muscle,
and
uh,
bones density.
bone
Like,
density,
men just
uh,
can hit
muscle
harder.
muscle muscle density. Yeah, like they could weigh the same and maybe be at the same height, but you're still talking about
That
a
would be an interesting
biological.
study to do. I'm sure it's already happened, but if
And
you can find a
yeah,
woman and a man with
there's
both
been there.
physically fit that are the exact same weight, height, and all that, and
Yeah,
have
there
most of their striking ability.
and there are organizations that do have those kind of sanctioned fights where the two parties are of the understanding of who their opponent is and they agree to the fight, and it's something that has happened,
Um,
and that would be fine. But it's almost like the argument that could be applied to like a trans division within a sport would almost be like the argument that is for like women's sports in general. Is like, yeah, it exists or it could exist, but not as many people are going to watch it. Therefore, the demand for it, like the justification for its existence, can't be made because the demand isn't there. Because you look at the women's basketball division, for example, like they off and on complain because they're not getting paid as much as the men's NBA. Well, that's because nobody's watching your shit. Nobody's interested in women playing basketball. And
that's a
that's
good
not your
point. Bring more eyes to it, and you'll get more money.
well, I mean, and it's not their fault. It's just that generally nobody's interested in women playing sports because the intensity isn't there.
Mm,
Like
interesting take.
and it can be applied different. Like you could say, well, what about like the UFC? What about WWE? Well, there is a degree of intensity in those that people are interested in,
What can you?
but
Wait. Can we count pro wrestling in this since it is, as so many people like to call it, fucking fake? Like, can we count pro
yeah,
wrestling in this statistic? Like, because
yeah, you can, you
pro
can.
wrestling is there. They have intergender matches, but because the thing is fake, it's a little easier to swallow, I guess. But they're depending on the writing for their shows, their women's divisions can be good depending on your writer and your
Yeah,
company
but
and what have you.
there's also an appeal that draws like not just men but the general crowd.
Yeah.
Like for an example, like going back to the WNBA and regular NBA, you
Yeah.
compare those two, like aesthetically, like the WNBA isn't aesthetically pleasing. Like
I
they're
don't
tall
watch it.
women. Yeah, well, I mean, you would kind of
I don't watch the
guess the
regular
notion.
NBA either. So just
Yeah,
to be clear.
neither do I. But like, what is lacking in the WNBA? Like, there's not a balance there to
Yeah.
keep it interesting. So like the balance for like the women's division in UFC is like there might not be as much intensity compared to like the male division's fighters, but like the general audience might find them attractive enough that they would watch it. But like I don't know, it's kind of weird to compare the UFC like fighting mixed martial arts to like sports ball because you think about the NFL. I was gonna say like I'm gonna use the NFL as an example. Like NFL men's division stuff like that. Like there is intensity there. There is like the brutal physical contact sport of it that people like to watch. And
Did you ever watch the Lingerie Football League?
I was about to get to that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. You're right. You're right. So when when there's the lingerie football league for the women, of course, a lot of people are going to watch that because it's hot women in lingerie
Those
playing full
women were
contact sport.
fucking mean.
Now you tell me, do you think more men would watch the WNBA if they were wearing lingerie versus what they
Dude,
wear?
the Lingerie Football League, if those women played the same as they did, if you didn't have to put them in like lingerie, you could have put them in actual football gear. Like they had pads on, they weren't gigantic,
Yeah,
huge
yeah,
pads,
yeah.
but they had
Now
female pads, for want of a better term. But those women fucking played hard. They
they
were
sure did.
doing Goldberg-esque spears and coming up with bloody faces and spitting out teeth like badasses. Like, you can't tell
Now
me shit about women don't have an intensity and I watching
no,
lingerie
and
football league.
no, no, you're right. And I'm going to give another example too. I when I name this sport or activity, I want you to immediately call out the first gender, sex, whatever. I don't care, either male or female. I want you to
Okay.
immediately tell me what comes to your mind when I say roller derby.
Women.
Yeah, everybody knows about women's roller derby and how intense that can be. Like they smack the shit out of each other and it
Good
is
point.
fun to watch. I haven't watched it in forever and it's very rare, but it has a reputation for being very intense.
Roller derby is pretty intense.
Women's soccer and women's basketball is not intense.
Um, let's bring it back to Joe Rogan for a minute,
Okay, yeah. So
because
circling
they
back
tried
to
to
Joe
cancel him.
Rogan. Yeah, so the precursor, the I guess the catalyst, the first instance was the Fallon Fox issue and being called transphobic, despite him saying very clearly he doesn't have a problem with trans people. He has a problem with people entering into a sports and not telling anyone or trying to pass off as something that they're not, knowing full well that they have a huge advantage against their opponent when their opponent does not know about that advantage.
Yes. So, well, all that to say that Joe Rogan is no stranger to controversy.
Absolutely not. He's a comedian.
Um, but Joe Rogan, we've joked that with Trump out of office, the news media needed someone to talk shit on, and
Mhm.
Rogan, being as huge as he is, I guess became target number one, because it was like first they tried to hit him with, like, when he got signed to Spotify, everybody started dogging him on every little fucking thing. And then they
Yeah.
tried to get him canceled here recently, like back in February, because they said he was spreading misinformation, which he's had people from both sides of the fence and every side of the fence. This is a big fence
Mm-hmm.
on that show to a certain degree. Like I mean, I can't think of too many people that it's been excluded. Uh, but then when that shit didn't work, they were like, "Oh, he's a racist," and this mysterious video of all the N words he's ever said appeared. And when that
Mm-hmm.
didn't work, they revealed like people started giving Spotify shit,
I was gonna
saying,
say they threw every istophobe word that they
"Yeah."
could. They threw every buzzword that they could at him, like the cliche, "You're transphobic, misogynist, racist."
Then they
Literally an istophobe.
then they came at Spotify with like, "You gave this racist $100 million, and he's your number one paid guy." And Spotify said, "Okay, guys, listen, we're gonna take $100 million. I'm paraphrasing. We're gonna take $100 million, and we're gonna put it towards people of color and their projects." And everybody went, "Cool, that actually sounds like a good idea." And then come to find out, his $100 million
Well,
deal was
kinda.
closer to $200 million. And they were like, "Did you forget that this racist was rich?" It's like, yo, leave this man alone. Like, he's not doing anything wrong other than being successful. And, like, like, the whole thing started with, like, misinformation. You want to talk about some misinformation? Because this was a fucking hit piece, okay? Can we just call a spade a spade? And this whole Joe Rogan cancellation bit was a fucking hit piece by somebody for some reason.
Oh, it's just general Twitter cancel culture. Like they've got nothing better to
CNN
do.
has been involved.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean
Like, what?
CNN is
It's not just Twitter. This is a hit piece on Joe Rogan for some fucking reason that
yeah,
even
but
mainstream media is involved with.
yeah, but CNN echoes Twitter like
That's true.
to a huge degree, and they're also like the lowest rated of any news broadcast. Like,
Wasn't it CNN, the Sanjay Gupta guy that he works for? It's CNN, right?
yeah, yeah. And
Like,
that's the hilarious part too, is like Joe Rogan's like, look, I've got nothing bad to say about the guy. I think he could be a little confused about a couple things here and there, but overall, I think he's like a really nice guy. I think he's really smart. And then he has Sandra on his fucking show, and they have like what, a 3-4 hour talk,
yeah, it was
and
good.
and then
Good podcast, actually, I thought.
and then a fucking week later, Sandra goes and writes some shit article like the opening one of the opening paragraphs, like for like between one or three paragraphs. He's like, before I met Joe, I thought he was essentially I thought he was an animal, and at one point I thought he was gonna leap over the table and
Yeah, I remember
strangle
reading that.
me. He literally writes, I think this guy is gonna leap over the table and strangle me, but instead he has a calm and rational discussion with me. Are the things that people say about Joe Rogan wrong? Maybe. It's like, dude, go touch grass. Do you
Right?
have do you have friends?
Have you experienced light that isn't fluorescent in a while? Go
Do you talk to
outside.
people outside of CNN or Twitter? And that was
Touch
something a lot of
grass. Can we
that
get
was
a
something a
shirt
lot
that
of
says
people
that?
touch grass. Go
Yeah,
touch
first
grass.
merch. Our first merch. Go touch grass and the Poptards logo below it.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh god. But no man,
Uh,
like this just it was so weird to me that this like hit piece on him was happening. Like if you want to talk about misinformation, can I just shit talk somebody for a minute?
I
Because
was
I
gonna
got
say
some shit to say.
so. Yeah, I was gonna say segueing into misinformation and
Peter
over
motherfucking Molyneux.
Peter Molyneux. Yeah, talk.
Hello there. It's been a minute. It's been a long minute, I'm sure. So, we've been a little bit busy. Albert has been busy with his band and work, and then I've been busy with my work and more work. But as of recent, I have come down with the old Rona. So, with his band on break right now, and him having a little extra free time, and I also have a little extra free time, and before I die, I think we're going to try to get a follow-up episode to this podcast, since we had some technical malfunctions and it cut on us early. So we're just going to treat this as a full episode. Next episode will be it. So if you're still listening, thanks. We appreciate it. See you soon.